Hi, Pierre. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm okay. Let me introduce to you Pierre Noel, who is, will be joining us today and will introduce himself in a minute. But I think Pierre has a fantastic career and he may share a few things with us this morning. So rather than me, introducing you, please, give enlighten our listeners and viewers about your great career.
Very happy to do that, Gibbon. I think your career is impressive as well. Um, so I've done 360 degrees when it comes to cybersecurity. I have been a consultant. I have been a developer a long, long time ago. I have been focused on things above and beyond cyber, i.e., enterprise risk management. Then I became the CISO, Chief Security Officer for Microsoft across the Asia time zone. I have lived 25 years in Asia. I became the Chief Security and Privacy Officer for Huawei, the Chinese telecommunication company. Then I moved back to Europe. I'm a Belgian person. I moved to Switzerland and I worked with SIX, which is the Swiss Stock Exchange. We built what we call the Cyber Hub community, so bringing together all the cybersecurity teams from all the finance organizations across Switzerland, 150 of them, and sharing information and helping each other. After that, I joined private equity, sovereign fund, to invest up to few billion dollars into cybersecurity firms. And now I am a CISO of few small organizations, advising very big organizations and government all over the world, and spending quality time with friends like you.
Thank you so much for finding the time to do so. How about your stay in Asia? I think you stayed in Singapore, I should say.
I lived primarily in Hong Kong. Most of my time was in Hong Kong, and next was in Singapore. So out of 25 years, I guess I have lived 12, 13 years in Hong Kong, 8 years in Singapore, and the rest in Tokyo.
Oh, super. Okay. Well, we share a bit of that also in our career. So glad to hear and glad to have you back. I think you're living now in the UK, so glad to have you back in Europe. Is there any part of your career which was the most formative, if I can ask? Who marked you most in terms of what you learned or who determined your direction later?
It's definitely the Microsoft story that really was the most formative to me. Not necessarily because I learned a great deal in terms of cybersecurity techniques or whatnot, but I had a fantastic opportunity to work with nice people. The Microsoft team was a fantastic team, and most of my activities were also towards the market. I had to establish and maintain very strong relationship with government all over Asia. And when we say Asia, that included places like China, India, New Zealand, Singapore, the whole gamut, everywhere except perhaps North Korea. And so that was very, very fascinating. I learned a great deal in communication, in the need for sharing. And from that aspect, that was the most formative time in my experience so far.
I think what is unique about your career is also when you were on the investment side. Most of us, and maybe many of the people who view this here, will be either senior management or CIOs or CISOs. But maybe this is quite a special. So, what was your view of the world when you were on that side of the equation?
Oh, I learned a great deal because when I joined the sovereign fund, I had no real experience in investment. Of course, I forgot to mention I've been a CEO of two organizations as well. So I had my own cybersecurity companies. So I was quite used to investment from the receiving side, if you will, when you have to pitch, when you have to demonstrate to investors the value you bring, and so on. But being on the sovereign fund was a completely different perspective. I had to learn on how to evaluate the value and the future of organizations. I had to make sure that what the organization is capable of doing would match with the market is asking. So completely different perspective, and I'm glad I did it. I know it's not my forte, but it really helped me to broaden my perspective, to give me a more dimension. An understanding on what cybersecurity is all about, and especially in the business of cybersecurity. So very rewarding from that
Oh,
angle.
super. I know that both of us are also still working on helping cybersecurity startups to work. So I think it's any advice for those, because when I see some people have a hard time sometimes defining what is a product really. Is it technology? Is it services? And is it consulting? And so on and so forth. How was your view when you were on the sovereign fund side on this type of topic?
Well,
Did you?
it's fascinating because the investment I did with the sovereign fund was usually for organizations that had already been around and needed something like Series B, Series C investment, so they have somewhat demonstrated some traction on the market. But my activities, like you with cybersecurity startups, is mostly with organizations that have ideas and not much more than that. And what I keep on telling them is that you will succeed if you think in terms of problems your clients have, not in terms of the value that you bring. You might have a fantastic idea, you might have fantastic technology, but if it does not fix a practical problem that your potential clients will have, this is worth absolutely nothing. So that's number one. Number two, to teach humility to these people. I mean, most of them, they have a reasonably big ego, which is normal. This is what it takes. If you want to succeed, you have to believe in yourself. But many of these people who come with great ideas are probably very bad in doing business, in building a business. So they have to learn what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and determine whether they want to learn upon their weakness, or to have to set up some partnership with people who can bring strength where they have weakness. So it's not because you are a founder of a startup that you will necessarily become the CEO. Perhaps you're not the right person to be a CEO. Perhaps you should be a CTO, or perhaps you should just remain a founder. So this kind of interaction is a fascinating one, and I really like to spend time interacting with these people.
Okay, I get it. I think it's a very, it's almost people management at large, because it's difficult to have a very objective opinion about yourself, especially in the context of a startup. Maybe towards the end of this discussion, I would like to ask you two questions. One is, when you look at your peers, is there any advice you would give to your peers at this moment?
Yes, definitely. The main advice that comes to me, aside from remaining humble, but most of the people in our community are usually humble people. If we have been CISO for so many years, if we have reached that level of seniority, we usually are reasonably easygoing. But my first advice, my most important advice is use the community, share, participate, work with other people. You yourself, you will never be strong enough to protect your organization. At Microsoft, we had a budget of $1 billion at my time. And yet we had some successful attack against us. So it's not a question of being big. It's a question of seeking help and support from everyone else in your community. So build a community and help your community and be held by your community. Together we are stronger. So that would be my first and most important advice to people whom I would consider to be peers.
Okay, super. I think you're absolutely right. I think especially security is getting expanding. There is simply no way any individual anymore can solve the problem, both outside the company and within the company. So certainly community building is key. Now, we talked about your peers, but what kind of advice to the younger generation? We have, we always suffer from a lack of staff in security. And there's a lot of people who may think about going into security or studying security or being at the very beginning of their career. But when we started, security was very narrow in some sense, or a lot narrower than today. Now it's gigantic and it grows by the day. So they are in front of a very different problem than we were in the early days. So any advice you would like to give, to share with a younger generation, if I can call it?
Yes, actually, I'm mentoring several students who came to me through different associations. And cybersecurity is such a wide thing, as you rightly said, that it's very important for people who see that this, or who sense that they have an interest in doing cyber, to find the discipline they like. Some people might want to orchestrate an entire cybersecurity program. Some people might want to become expert in secure development lifecycle. Some people might want to become expert in penetration tests. That's fine. Find the stuff you like, become an expert in that field, so that's somewhat vertical, and then grow. From that angle, grow. Understand that you will never be an expert in everything in cyber, because it has grown way too complex. And understand, going back to my other suggestion, that you need to share. You need to work in a community. You will never know everything, and usually by working with other people together, we will be stronger. So to some extent, it goes back to my initial comment, but applied to the more junior people who are in the decision phase about their career.
Makes sense. Super. And thanks for the advice. Do you have any time for anything else than the security? What is your hobby? Is there anything you do when you don't do security, or there's no time left and you just travel around?
I am crazy about old stones, very old houses or castle. And I've been very lucky to purchase a castle in restoration, a 13th century old castle in southwest of France. So my hobby is to renovate that castle, which is much more a nightmare than anything. But that's what really catches my mind.
I have to come and visit you over there, or maybe help you, build it or rebuild it, maybe. Okay, well, thank you so much, Pierre, and looking forward to the next video. So we'll have a video on DORA, the Digital Operational Resiliency Act, and hope to see you all there. So again, thank you so much.
I'm very much looking forward to doing this with you.
Thank you.